What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Triple H podcast. Happy Hour Hoops, another playoff edition. Deep in the second round. Steve, I'm back. We're without Jake today,
We are.
but we got me and Steve. I've returned. They held it down last week. We're gonna hold it down right now and dive into all the playoffs. Steve, I know you've been loving the playoffs right now, but just humor me.
The playoffs have been pretty good. These series have been pretty competitive. We expected, I think, the first round was a lot of fun, but I think you could kind of tell who was coming out of the first round. There were some exciting series, but these series have been pretty competitive so far. We have two at least going 6 from the series last night, and then we got 2 more tonight where Knicks kind of back up against the wall against the Heat, trying to force it, to even the series at 2-2. And then you have Lakers-Warriors, where, Dunny, to be honest, I feel like they're going to trade games every single game.
Yeah.
I feel like that's trading games until Game 7. But, I mean, it's for a basketball fan, it's great because we have 4 pretty competitive series. And honestly, the one that has looked the least competitive so far has probably been Knicks-Heat, which a lot of people thought was going to be probably the tightest series.
Yeah.
So it's been good so far. These series have been pretty close. I think Nuggets-Suns, when it was 2-0, it was a little worried that, Suns might be dead, especially without Chris Paul. And then what did they do? Devin Booker and Kevin Durant just did Devin Booker and Kevin Durant things where they said, you know what, does not matter that we're going to be 80% of this team scoring game after game. We're going to just have 2 insane games and back-to-back games that even up the series. And for a basketball fan, it's just great because we're getting exciting basketball in the second round before the conference finals, which I don't think anyone can complain about that.
Yeah, man, it's been special, and I honestly, you just touched on it. I think the craziest series for me has been that Denver and Phoenix series, just because, like you said, I think me, you, the rest of the world, got the way the first 2 games went, everyone's like, okay, maybe Phoenix steals a game, but without Chris Paul, it seems not doable. And then, as you mentioned, those guys turn it on. We'll get to all the series. A little, barely any new news coming out in the midst of the playoffs, but we do have the decision 2.0. Bronny James is headed to USC. He's going to be a Trojan, and that is where he will play his collegiate basketball, at least start his journey.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction? Obviously, it was exciting for him to pick a school as is, but what do you think about the decision here by Bronny?
Number one, I kind of like the spot, right? Obviously, with LeBron in LA, Bronny staying a little closer with Southern California, you're right there. So I think that's a smart move for him. But B, too, it's a big school. Maybe not as big a basketball school as maybe some of the other schools out there like UCLA, but USC's a big time, school. He's going to get a ton of people at these games. USC's a great program, and just for a little bias here, the Conference of Champions, this is a W. This is a big W for the Conference of Champions. Yeah. A lot of times, not a lot of people are focusing on Pac-12 college basketball. A lot of ACC, Big East has the focus, DC, because you're watching those games almost every single night. They're on at 7, 8 o'clock Eastern time most of the part. The Pac-12 is kind of an afterthought, and this is really good for a conference that has been solid over the past handful of years. Now you get a big player going to a big school, you're going to put USC on the map. I think it's also going to help Bronny, too. I think there would have been more concern about questions of Bronny of what he can do, or is he just LeBron's son going into the draft? But now we get to see him play college basketball in a major conference, which is huge for him, and also huge, too, for those late night, Pac-12 watchers like myself. Bill Walton is so excited for this, a chance to call Bronny in his college basketball game. So I love it. I think the spot's very, very cool landing spot. I get it in terms of, a local school, but also to a big school. And I love the idea of going to college to kind of prove that, hey, I'm not just LeBron's son, that I can ball too. I kind of think it's a win-win situation right now.
Yeah, I love the Bill Walton thing, man. As if we didn't think he could get crazy enough on the broadcast, and now he gets to commentate on games where Bronny James will be a part of it. Yeah, it's for me. I just thought it was cool because it's not your classic blue blood. He didn't really, and who knows like how many like legit offers or what the playing time would have been like if he went to a even bigger market, I guess, or a better school. But I kind of like how it's like right in the middle there, where it's like known school, not too crazy of a basketball school, but it's competitive. The league will be competitive. They don't really have too many studs there. So like we kind of can evaluate Bronny for what he is and what he will be, at least for the first year, because who knows if he stays more than one. Obviously the recruiting
I would be surprised if he stayed longer than 1 year, to be honest with you.
And that's what I was going to ask next. I think I would be surprised if it wasn't a one and done. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes college in some fashion, because we've already heard Bron speak out and say he's the first person in my family to go to college. And obviously that means a lot to them. So I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes in some fashion, but I think you're right. I think it'll be 1 year of basketball at USC. And then, we'll see after that if he teams up with Dad or not, but the NIL money should be crazy.
Crazy is an understatement. But also, too, I think this is awesome because there's going to be so many people. There's a ton of basketball fans right now, too, who just haven't watched Bronny. They just know him as LeBron's son, right? Now it gives a ton of people to actually watch the kid and kind of give their own, opinion or evaluation on the guy and see, is this guy just LeBron's son or can he ball too? And I think you nailed it. It's kind of the perfect spot. It's a big school in terms of USC's achieved a ton. It's a great school, but it's not really one of those blue blood basketball programs. So it's going to give him more of an opportunity to kind of show what he's got, whether if he went to like a Kentucky or a Duke or a school like that, where he could go to USC now. He could kind of be the guy there. So I think it's a great choice for him. I'm very excited to see what he can bring.
Yeah, man, it's going to be cool. I would assume, within the coming days, Bronny will probably be one of the highest NIL paid athletes, if not the highest within like the first week he's on campus. But yeah, something cool, a little exciting news. If your team maybe isn't in the playoffs and you were just looking for some around the league news, obviously not pertaining to the NBA exactly, but anytime we get LeBron related news or anyone in his family related news, it's a great time.
Yeah.
Shall we get into it?
Let's do it, man. We got 4 fun series to talk about.
Yes, we do. We'll start with the games that we'll be playing tonight. So if you are not listening live, it is Monday night. A little bit before the Heat-Knicks game, and then we will talk about Lakers-Warriors because that is the other game tonight. The Heat and Knicks. The Heat lead the New York Knicks 2-1. As I just mentioned, Game 4 is tonight. I mean, the freaking Miami Heat, man. We were talking about it in the play-in game. We were like, yeah, they'll probably make it out. People shouldn't take Miami lightly. Then against Milwaukee, we were like, yeah, maybe they'll make it a little tough. Maybe they steal a game against Milwaukee. Nope. They just sent that guy Giannis home, no problem.
Yep.
And now, without Tyler Hero, a banged-up Jimmy Butler to start the series, they find themselves up 2-1. They have a home game tonight. And Spoelstra is just proving time and time again how he is not only one of the best coaches in the league right now, but one of the best coaches of all time.
I mean, I don't think there's any denying it at this point. Heat culture is crazy, and it's wild too, Dunny, because I look at this. The Heat, obviously, they have home court advantage now. They still have a chance to get another home win before going back to New York. And I honestly think if the Heat go up 3-1, if they do win tonight and they're favored by 4.5, the series is team losing 3 straight. I just don't. The way the Heat play, the way that the guys, around Jimmy Butler are starting to step up too. They really, Jimmy Butler, we saw with the ankle and we saw what happened. Obviously, he was hurt. He missed the game. Other guys have been stepping up. Gabe Vincent stepped up one game. Max Strus has stepped up. Kyle Lowry has had some pretty good games off the bench. And
that's been surprising.
It's been surprising. And the one guy who really hasn't stepped up that much this series has been Bam, but he's been better than last series. It's like you haven't even gotten an A Bam game yet. You beat Milwaukee in 5. You're up 2-1 on the Knicks, potentially to go up 3-1. So you just look at those 2 series alone, right? You're playing Milwaukee and the Knicks, you've only lost twice. You already won 1 series. You're halfway there on the other one. And outside of Jimmy Butler, you haven't really gotten an A game from your second star, Bam. These other role guys are stepping up, kind of in spots. It's been inconsistent, but stepping up where they need to. But the biggest thing, Donnie, is what I say, is the Heat culture. It's the defense. It's the effort. It's the physicality. It's just the way that Miami Heat just turns it up to a different notch, to a different type of style when the playoffs come around, and it really just caters to their style of basketball, or Spoelstra style of basketball. And it's incredible to watch because it's just relentless. And we've seen the Miami Heat do this before. I told you, I think they're going to give Milwaukee, a couple games. I didn't expect them to win the series. And now you look at how the Knicks bullied the Cavs. They look like a completely different team against the Heat. The Heat are bullying the Knicks like the Knicks bullied the Cavs. And it's just crazy because when I watch the Knicks Cavs series, I'm like, the Knicks can match the Heat's physicality. They can match their effort on the glass. They can match this type of physical play. No, they haven't so far. They haven't so far. And the Miami Heat have just done a great job once again at just putting the stars in bad positions on the opposite side of the court for the Knicks. Brunson, Barrett, Randall all struggled mightily in Game 3. You just got to have one of those guys to step up. And if one of those guys isn't playing out of his mind, how do you beat the Miami Heat in this? And it's crazy, too, because we're talking about my Miami Heat team that lost Tyler Hero. And people are like, oh, it's Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero averaged 20 points, about 4 rebounds, 4 assists per game this year. He had his best season. They lost it. And it's like the team has gotten better. It's just it's crazy how this Miami Heat team is next man up mentality. And they've been doing this for how long, Dunny? It's just wild to see this Miami Heat team still doing what they've been doing for years. When you look at the roster and on paper, you're like, that's not that great of a roster, but they play like it.
Yep. Yeah, no, they sure do, man. And it is kind of disappointing because I think all of us were going to, we're kind of looking forward to this matchup of physicality. And you kind of touched on it there. The Knicks just haven't really brought it on their end. Maybe for a half of one of these games we've seen them play all that physical. But think about it. The game they won, Jimmy Butler didn't play.
I know.
So we don't even know if.
And it's not like they ran him out of the gym. It was a tight game without Jimmy Butler.
They almost won in the closing minutes without Jimmy Butler. It really is just a testament to Erik Spoelstra, Heat culture, whatever you want to say. But obviously the guys themselves are stepping up too. But yeah, man, I had here as one of our notes for this game, and you mentioned it. Randall, Brunson, Barrett, who has been good, so we know he can do it. Just none of them showed up last game. I think most notably Randall. When he has a bad game, it looks really bad because he's undersized for his position, but he's still a big dude, and he knows how to play on the block. He knows how to create a shot inside and out. But when he's struggling and the jump shot's not going, it just looks real, real bad for Julius Randle. And the Knicks almost fall into this trap when their offense starts poorly. It almost seems like they just can't help but continue to play poorly on the offensive end. And it just can't happen, especially on the road tonight against Miami. I'm with you. I think many people probably think this way, but obviously a must win for the Knicks tonight because, like you said, the Heat are not losing 3 in a row. I mean, when was the last time the Heat lost 3 in a row? In January, maybe?
Yeah, right.
Because they closed the season really strong too. Yeah. So I would guess it's been months since the last time they did that. All that being said, do you think the Knicks have it in them to throw another punch back at the Heat, or do you think they lie down tonight?
It's tough because you look at this Knicks team and on paper, I think they're a better team than the Miami Heat. And I don't think that opinion has changed. And I still think the Miami Heat go as far as Jimmy Butler takes them. You can't rely on, Martin and Strus and Vincent to have those type of 20-point games. So Jimmy goes as far as, the Heat go as far as Jimmy takes them. And Jimmy, even though the Heat won last game, Jimmy didn't look like, oh, this is takeover playoff Jimmy Butler. He played well. He played very well, but it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't like, oh, this is the Jimmy Butler we've seen. Maybe the ankle's still bothering him a little bit. And if you're the Knicks, you have to pounce, right? You have to pounce. Julius Randle has had, for the second time in now 3 seasons, an abysmal playoffs. Absolutely atrocious. And it's been covered up because RJ Barrett has, turned into big game RJ Barrett. And Jalen Brunson's been very solid. I think if the Knicks want to win this game, you have to get what we saw in the regular season of that, it looks like a couple of years ago, Julius Randle, most improved player. He's a superstar type of game out of Randle. You got to get that. You got to get like a 28-point, 12, 13 rebound type game out of Randle where he's hitting a couple threes, where really don't know if he's going to shoot or he's going to drive. And it just makes the defense uncomfortable because right now the Heat do not care whatsoever when Randle has the ball in his hands. It's not like, we got to double him, we can't let him attack. They're just letting him go. And if you don't get that out of Julius Randle, I don't see the Knicks winning this game. Even if RJ Barrett and Jalen Brunson play well, because we've seen them play well and the Heat have had counters to it. You have to get an A game out of Randle. You got to get that game that we haven't really seen in the playoffs from Randle to this point. And if you don't get that, I think they're down 3-1. And to be honest with you, Donnie, we haven't seen anything where Randle's going to show he can do that. Even if he has a better game, I still think the Heat take this. I mean, just the Heat at home are such a tough team at home, especially when the crowd's getting involved. And right now, too, Miami's finally starting to believe in this team. Like the crowd, the fans of Miami. You saw the beginning of the playoffs, they're a little weary, like, how is this Heat team? Oh, no, they're fully bought in. They're fully bought into the Miami Heat right now, where they're thinking Eastern Conference Finals and potentially going to the NBA Finals. So that place is going to be crazy. And if there's one coach in the NBA that's going to have his guys ready and not going to let them, loosen up, it's going to be Spoelstra. The Heat are not going to let the Knicks come into Miami. And if they're going to win, it's going to have to be a tough fight. Miami's not going to let the Knicks come in here and do what they want. They're going to have to win a war against the Heat. And we've seen so much these past couple months, the point that the Heat are just going to go up 3-1. We have.
Yeah. And we've talked about Spoelstra. We always do. I mean, I think everyone knows how good of a coach he is at this point.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I think if the Knicks follow up this game with how they played last game and then ultimately lose the series 4-1, that question about Tibbs' coaching style is going to start to get asked again. Does he exhaust his guys with the style of play and the minutes he chooses to give his main guys? Will we see that ultimately exhaust this team and then lose to a more versatile, a better coached, more energetic team in the Miami Heat because they're coached the right way and, they're not pushed to these crazy asks that their coach is trying to put on them. But obviously we'll see. I think the Knicks at least fight tonight. I'm not guaranteeing a New York Knicks win, but we'll see.
What do you got? If you had to go right now, you're taking a side in the game. I think Heat are favored by 4.5. Where are you leaning?
Well, you're talking to someone who bet Knicks money line on Saturday.
Oh no.
I think I would have to take the Heat spread tonight again, just because how good they looked. They're at home. Yeah. I honestly, I think Jimmy can play better than he did last game. And like you mentioned, when are we going to get this freaking Bam game? We're almost through 2 series. And he didn't play well in the play-in, or at least to his standards in the play-in. He's
gradually getting better in this series, but we still haven't seen that Bam game where he's hitting the mid-range turnovers, where he's playing aggressive, where he's just monster defensively. We haven't seen it yet. And the Heat are up 2-1, and they beat the Bucks of 5, and we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I think I'm going Heat tonight for that reason. Maybe Bam shows up tonight.
I'm with you.
All right. And the second game tonight, probably the most polarizing series that we'll have in this whole playoffs. Unless obviously the finals would be great too. I don't mean to dumb down any other series here, but it's the star-studded series. It's the series everyone's talking about, even when they don't have a game on that particular night. Everyone's still talking about it. It's the Lakers. It's the Warriors. Lakers lead 2-1 here. And I think my only complaint about this series is that the last 2 games have been pretty lopsided from the jump. Yeah. It's almost like, well, we don't really have a game here. Oh, and all of a sudden it's a blowout. Yeah. Other than that, it's been great. The storylines, the AD playing every other game good. Steph and Clay always electric when they're on the court. And then LeBron James, year 20, just still having eye-opening, jaw-dropping plays night in, night out in this series.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically getting what we kind of expected, right? Where these teams, I don't think we wanted the blowouts, but the teams are kind of playing to their strengths. Where you saw the game the Warriors won, how'd they win that? They just shot a bunch of threes. Klay Thompson was incredible. And how'd the Lakers win there too? They just went through Anthony Davis, and the Warriors had no answer. You saw in game 1, Kevon Looney, who was trying to be on Anthony Davis, and Kevon Looney was great on the boards, but Anthony Davis was like 11 to 12 from the floor. He got whatever he wanted. Then you see game 2. Looney doesn't even start. Apparently it was a sickness. Apparently they said that was made up later on. Who knows? But Looney didn't start game 2 or 3. Game 2, the Warriors looked like they figured it out. They played a little smaller. They played a little faster. And Anthony Davis wasn't really a factor. Warriors shot the lights out. They win game 2. Then game 3, Anthony Davis is doing Anthony Davis things again. Kevon Looney's barely not playing. So now you just don't have anyone to try to cover him. And the Lakers win that one with ease. But the one thing, Dunny, we haven't seen yet in this series is that Steph Curry game. We have not seen that classic Steph Curry game. He said 27, 20, and 23 in the first 3 games. That's not a Steph Curry game. He's shooting all right, but he's not shooting a lot. And I feel like we're going to see one game where Curry just says, you know what? We got blown out last night. I'm not letting us lose both in LA and, go down 3-1 coming home. I'm just going to shoot it. I'm the greatest shooter in the world. And if it doesn't go in, it doesn't go in. And I think that's what we're going to see tonight, where the Warriors really rely on Steph Curry and obviously Klay Thompson too, just chucking up shots, because Steph Curry has played efficiently, but he just hasn't had the impact that you'd normally expect from Steph Curry. And credit maybe to the Lakers defense for not really getting him in those spots where he can, but it's Steph Curry. If there's anyone who's like, I want to take 30 shots today, I'm going to take 30 shots, it's going to be Steph Curry. So that's really the only thing we're missing from this series. LeBron has been LeBron. LeBron has impacted the game in so many ways where he has dominant games, but the stat line doesn't even reflect it. And you look at it and you go, LeBron's just playing well. He's playing better than you'd expect any 38-year-old to play. But the one thing I think missing in this series is that classic Steph Curry game where you look at halftime and you're like, how's he have 32 points and 8 threes? And I think that's what I think we could see tonight, because if there's anyone to do it, because I tell you right now, the Warriors don't want to be down 3-1. They don't. Okay. And I think this is a game where they just trade games, and we get to another classic game 7. And if that's the case, the Warriors need someone to step up, and the best player, the best shooter in the world has not stepped up to the point where he could take over a game in the series. I think tonight's where we see Steph Curry emerge.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So the things for me is, and I think this is true in any series going forward if the Lakers make it out, and this series, but the Lakers go as AD goes at this point.
Oh, 100%.
The way their roster is currently constructed, we saw what happens when he has a dud of a game. They get destroyed. They have no chance. And then last game, they win by 30 when he's affecting shots, getting his hands in the passing lane. I mean, the amount of balls that he tipped out of bounds, that he could have had 10 steals last game if he wanted to. I think. Sure. And I just think it's going to be even more important going forward. You're going to play better front court players no matter who you play in the Western Conference Finals, and then no matter who you match up with in the finals if you get there. So I think they go through AD. And then the other thing is it's kind of simple on the other side too. I think if you don't get the highest of standard games from Steph and Klay, it doesn't really seem like the Warriors can do it either. Like, look at last game. Like, Steph had 23. I think they could maybe get away with that. But Klay Thompson having 15 points and playing 30-plus minutes, that's not going to get it done.
No.
Not against the Lakers team like this, and especially not if AD's doing the whole defense thing and actually, getting his hands on the game. The only thing that should worry the Lakers, and it's, the thing that has worried them for years since they got Davis, is he got, it wasn't major, but he got injured again last game. He fell on Draymond. He hurt his ribs or somewhere in his midsection, because the whole game he was holding that part of his body. And you just must wince every time you're a Lakers fan when you see this dude hit the ground or fall on something wrong or collide with another player. But yeah, man, I think, if AD can be himself and avoid injury, it's pretty telling how lopsided this series can be if he just does that. But I'm with you. I don't think we've seen the best of Klay or Steph in this series yet. And then the only other thing I want to say for the Warriors, and he kind of showed that he's able to do it, but I think Wiggins needs to take a step for them in this series, because they need.
He's shown flashes of it.
The dunk on AD, that's as good as you're gonna get.
Games against the Kings where he didn't need to, really take over, but he had some games where it's like, oh, this looks like Wiggins from last year's run, where he was the number 2 to Steph Curry. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that he was the second option after Steph Curry. And we've seen spurts of it, Dunny, but you're right. We haven't seen a full game of it. And I think that might partly be too, because we forget Wiggins was away from the team for 2 months. He's still, this is only what? You look at the Kings, they played 7 games. He's 10 games in. This is 10 games of being back and playing basketball again.
Yeah.
It's still going to take a little bit of time, but you're right. We have seen flashes of it. And if we see flashes of it, that's a good sign. That's a good sign, because I think you're right. He's definitely someone who can be a reliable second or third option after Steph and Klay. And he should be. Also, too, we saw in game 1, Jordan Poole had a nice little game coming off the bench. Jordan Poole's another one where especially he's one of those guys who loves this type of moment, right? Back up against the wall in LA, under the bright lights. This is a spot where Jordan Poole can just have one of those games where he just comes off scorching hot. So I think we haven't really seen a big takeover game besides maybe game 2. Klay Thompson was pretty much lights out. Besides that, we haven't really seen a big takeover game from any of the Warriors players. And tonight just kind of feels like it's going to be the spot for it. Who that'll be, we'll see. But I'm banking on the Warriors evening this up.
I'm thinking the same thing as you, man. And a few other notes on the Dubs, man, because it's almost not like them. And I'm with you. I think that Looney thing was weird. I kind of believe, because they said on the broadcast before it started that Looney was sick. And then I saw afterwards the same thing you did about, was that actually the case? And they went to JaMychal Green and it worked. And then they kind of tried to do the same thing last game and it went terribly. 2 things here. We talk about how Stephen Klay didn't show up last game. Draymond Green, that might have been one of the worst games I've seen him play in the last 5 years, maybe.
That was a bad showing.
But I don't know. I don't remember if he ended up fouling out, but 2 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists in 23 minutes, and he was in foul trouble all game. And
he just looked like it wasn't, and partly probably because of the foul trouble, but it just looked like Draymond didn't have the same intensity that we're used to seeing from Draymond.
Right.
And I think the foul trouble is obviously partly because of that. But you're right. It was just like, if you got Kevin Looney, whatever magical illness he has, and he's not playing big minutes, Draymond Green has to be that guy defensively. He has to be. He wasn't.
And then kind of in the same conversation here, JaMychal Green started the game. He got you 2 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists. Granted, he only played 11 minutes. Draymond Green, we just went over what he had last game. Jonathan Kuminga, who hasn't been getting any run lately, scored 10 points in 9 minutes. And I know it was against the Lakers bench.
Yeah.
It was garbage time, of course. But 10 points in 9 minutes, he outscored Jordan Poole, who played 22 minutes. He outscored DiVincenzo, who played 22 minutes. He outscored Moses Moody, who played 20 minutes. And like I said, he outscored JaMychal Green, who started the game for you. He outscored Kevon Looney. I just think if they do end up in the situation where they desperately need some sort of energy, some sort of points, rebounding, defensive intensity, whatever it is, I would be surprised if Kerr doesn't, defer to Kuminga in some of these spots. Obviously, he doesn't, he doesn't give you great size, but something.
I think, not to take away from Kuminga, I still think sometimes like you got to earn it. Obviously, he's still young or whatnot, and that's garbage time. And it was nice to see, right, in a blowout that he could still come in a playoff game and kind of do what he needs to do. But my biggest thing here, Dunny, is like if he really is sick or something's going on and he can't play a lot of minutes, that's fine. But you can't play Kevon Looney 16 minutes a night. You just can't. And if you're like, oh, maybe it's a bad matchup, or, they're just kind of picking on him with AD, one-on-one. But Kevon Looney's one of your best interior defenders. He's been incredible on the offensive glass, which gives you extra possessions for your shooters. And it's one of those things we'll see as the series goes on. But I think if Looney was, maybe not, 100%, you need him more than 16 minutes. There is no world I live in where Moses Moody and JaMychal Green should be getting more minutes than Kevon Looney. I don't think that should be the case ever. And we'll see if maybe they change up the rotation a little bit here. Backs against the wall kind of type deal, have to must win this game. Maybe they say, hey, let's play, 4 guards with Draymond and play super quick, super fast. And maybe they try to give Kuminga a little more run off the bench than a guy like Moses Moody, possibly. But if he's able to play, I think Kevon Looney needs to be at least in the rotation where he can make an impact on the offensive glass and defensively.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Steve, he's not a starter tonight because Shams has impeccable timing. He just tweeted out the Warriors' expected starting lineup for Game 4 tonight. Steph Curry, Gary Payton II.
Okay, I like that more than Green. I like that more than Green.
Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green.
I don't hate that.
Small. I don't hate it either.
It's small, but it's tough. You're right. Mm-hmm. It's small, but it's tough. And I don't hate that. We also probably could see Gary Payton. I don't think maybe the same amount of minutes, but maybe that role where JaMychal plays a little bit and then all of a sudden you're rotating guys in and out and he only finishes with 10, 15 minutes on the court. But I'll tell you right now, I can speak on behalf of probably a lot of Warriors fans. They're a lot happier to see any name in there besides JaMychal Green in the starting lineup.
I know. I didn't really care for the amount of credit that Kerr and JaMychal Green himself was getting from that one game where Davis, he might as well have been, I don't even know. I was just trying to think of a just bad power forward that didn't do anything out there. No one is coming to mind. But that's what I'm trying to say here. He didn't do anything, and everyone's like, oh, JaMychal Green stretched the floor. No, Davis just played his worst game in months, and the Lakers didn't show up, much like the Warriors didn't show up last game. But yeah, I mean, even with the blowout last game, it was incredible to watch just because of the star power we have in this series. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we hope and we probably will get closer games down the stretch of this series. And it's a lot like the Sacramento Golden State series, right? Everyone just wants 7 here. Everyone wants 7 games of these two teams, 7 games to LeBron, Steph. And let's hope we get that. But now, Steve, we have to, unfortunately, you've turned to Stevie Boston.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. So we'll talk the ugly here. James Harden. I also thank you to Jake for making these banners for us. If you're watching on YouTube, we have the James Harden legacy game, and then in parentheses again, because James Harden now has 2 40-point games in this young series. Sixers, Celtics knotted up at 2 games, headed back to Boston tomorrow night, Tuesday night. I mean, I don't think the way the Celtics played that first half that they deserved to win yesterday, but they did have it in their grasps in the fourth quarter.
They were up by 5 at some point in the fourth
with
quarter.
Like a minute 40 roaring
left, comeback. And once again, I mean, you can say what you will about, the end of the game or the final possession or whatnot, but once again, it's James Harden made a cold-blooded shot. I mean, it's twice it's happened now, and I think that's why I can not laugh at it, but almost be like, I still feel fine about the Celtics. Like, I don't feel worried at all. You look at the games the Sixers won. Obviously, it was 2 Harden legacy games, but the Celtics were right there. If those are short, and typical, if James Harden misses those shots, we're talking about a 4-0 Celtics sweep. They're the overwhelming favorites to win the NBA Finals right now. That's what we're talking about. So, yes, and I know a superstar can take over a game, and I'm not discrediting anything, but I'm looking at the series as a whole, and those 2 losses the Celtics had, they had very good chances to win both those games, and in 2 separate ways. The one, James Harden just went nuts at the end of game 1, just kind of willed into that game. This second game, the Celtics, where you were right, you thought they were dead. At points in the third quarter, maybe start of the fourth, you're like, this team's dead. They roar back on a 3-point shooting and defense, which has been how they've won games these playoffs. And then James Harden just kind of does James Harden things. There were calls at the end of the game, but I said this too. I'm not going to blame the refs one way or another in this series. I just want the refs to be more consistent, because when you watch the Sixers-Celtics series, at some points during the game, it feels like they're playing tackle football and they're allowed to do whatever they want with no whistle. And then the next game, you can't breathe on a guy without getting a call. And I'm not blaming the refs in one way or the other. I think it's been equally bad for both sides.
Right.
I just want more consistency.
That's where I'm at too, man.
But the biggest thing for me, Dunny, in this series, right, is that I just look at the way the Sixers won the 2 games, and I look at the way the Celtics won the 2 games, and it just feels like that the Sixers are just going to run out of gas. And I thought they almost did in game 4. They looked exhausted towards the end of the game. I don't know where Harden kind of pulled the willpower from to make those shots at the end. He did. He's having an incredible playoff series. He's quieting all the haters, including myself, of James Harden coming up short in the playoffs. But when I look at it, I just feel like the Sixers are gassed, and I feel like it's a situation where if this goes back to Boston, this is a nice, easy win for Boston, 15, 20-point win, and then they just carry that momentum over to Philly, similar to kind of what happened in the Atlanta Hawks series. That's how I feel about it. I just look at the 2 losses, and I'd be like, the Celtics were still right there. They were right there. This isn't like, oh, the Lakers-Warriors series, right? A blowout by one team, a blowout by the next team. No, this is like the Celtics could have won those 2 games. They didn't. It took 2 godly performances from James Harden. But I'm also a little worried with the fact that we haven't seen a middling James Harden game. We've seen awful James Harden in games 2 and 3.
Ends of the spectrum.
And then we've seen prime MVP James Harden in games 1 and 4. So it's like, what is this Sixers team going to look like when we get a decent James Harden with Embiid, who's the MVP, with Tyrese Maxey, who's been playing well? So that's my only concern there. But I just don't have concerns about this series, because I will look at the Celtics team. I watch the way they play. The only big, I guess, red flag or question mark to me, and this is going to go to your boy, Jason Tatum is passing the ball at the end of games again. Take the damn shot.
Yeah.
And I get it. It would have been an awful look in the final possession where he kicked it out to Smart, and Smart made it after the buzzer. But I'm talking about a couple possessions before where Tatum's passing it up again at the end.
Yeah, to end regulation.
Draw contact. So it's just it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you say you have a 1A and a 1B, Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown, and I completely agree with that. But we've seen twice in this series where Jaylen Brown has gotten off to scorching hot starts, and that just becomes kind of a role guy at the end of the game, where they're not really letting him take that many shots. And then you have Jason Tatum, who, as the game is going on, is starting to take over. He's progressing throughout the game, been great. But then at the end of the game, he shies away from the big moment shots. It's like, dude, you are the best player on this team. If you want to be considered as like an MVP candidate, as one of these superstars who can carry teams, you got to take the shot. And if you're not taking the shot, then let Jaylen Brown take it, because he's been cold-blooded. Right. But if you look at the end of the games, you got guys, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, and I like those guys. They should not be taking the shot in the final 2-minute possessions. It just shouldn't be the case. So that's the only real concern I have. But like I said, if you look at the 4 games and you break them all down individually, I think the Celtics have been the better team of the series overall. They've led for, I think, 85% or something of the minutes in this series. The worry meter is like a 20. It's a 20 out of 100. I'm not too worried, but it's a 2-2 series, and you got to give Philly credit, and you really have to give James Harden credit because he has really quieted all the haters. He's playing unbelievable basketball in 50% of the games this series.
Yeah. So, I'm pretty much in agreement with everything you said. I kind of have a lot to say here, but I'll try to get through it relatively quickly.
Say whatever you need, man.
The James Harden thing, I think it's so crazy because I agree with you where I'm a little worried just because you like you said, the series could easily already be over. So that's why I'm worried as a Celtics fan. And, just the lack of execution to close the game in game 4 was concerning. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I feel good about the Celtics having to win 2 out of the next 3, and they have home court advantage. The thing that's weird is Philly fans probably feel not equally as confident, but very confident too. The fact that they're tied right now and they have this type of James Harden in 2 different games in this series. True. Like one was I don't even know if James Harden had a 40-point game under his belt until the playoffs started for the Sixers.
He might have had a couple earlier in the year, maybe. But yeah, you're right. Like we haven't seen this James Harden in months.
Right. So not as confident because I don't think they are, but they're probably pretty confident, which is just strange to think about because, if you said at the beginning of this series, it'd be knotted 2-2, but the Celtics have, home court advantage to end. I think most people would take Boston. So I think that piece of it's interesting. I also, last game bothers me so much because, like I said, I can live with it because I don't think we deserve to win that game anyway. Just from the first quarter until midway through the third quarter, I think they played horrible. But it sucks that you waste an all-time historic Al Horford performance. I mean, he could do no wrong in that fourth quarter and overtime guarding Joel Embiid. He played 37 minutes, 10.7 rebounds, 4 assists, whatever. Nothing crazy. 2 steals and 5 blocks. Yeah. And I think 4 out of the 5 blocks were on Embiid himself. I mean, he had Embiid in fits to the point where PJ Tucker had to go up to Embiid and basically tell him, hey, man, stop playing so soft. This isn't like you. Attack. And even after that, Al Horford blocked him again.
And that's just what really I was saying.
Sucks.
It looks like Embiid looked gassed. He looked exhausted at the end of that game. And I think the credit goes to Al Horford for that. And that's why I'm really not too worried because I just think the Sixers are just going to run out of energy. Embiid looked dead going up against Al Horford. And if you look at age and you look at physicality, you'd think it'd be the opposite. I think you're right. It's not going to show up in the box score to people, right? Especially the ones who missed the game, check it later. But Al Horford had an just an incredible game.
Yeah, and not to the degree because we all know the struggles Tatum had in the first half. Mm-hmm. But you kind of wasted an all-time Tatum performance as well. Yeah. I mean, he put up one of the most Kevin Garnett stat lines I've ever seen for someone who's not Kevin Garnett. He had 24 points, 18 rebounds, 6 assists. Oh, and he had 4 blocks of his own. Yeah. Between Horford and Tatum, they had 9 blocks. And those almost all of those 9 blocks were part of this comeback. Like every time Philly was going down, it was like either getting blocked by Tatum or Horford, and then they were scoring on the other end. Mazzulla's getting a lot of shit for the poor end of game execution. And I think he deserves some of it.
Do you think he should have called the timeout in either of those situations?
I think in overtime, yes. Regulation, fine with it.
I was okay with regulation as well. I like that. I think there's enough time where they're like, you know what?
And it was tied, right? So if you miss, you go to overtime. Like what happened? End of overtime, you're down. You got to call a timeout. If you miss, it's over.
I think so too. I agree.
And I mean, look at it. We got a much better look at the end of regulation too. Like Smart was wide open. For what it's worth, I wanted Tatum taking the shot too, but you're not going to get a better look than that. And Smart hit 3 threes in the game before that, maybe 4 threes. So it's not a Yeah, not a horrible shot, but yeah, end of overtime. I mean, it just shows you needed a timeout there. They dribbled for 10 seconds at the top of the key before they even started anything.
And that's what I get that annoyed with every team that does this. I get you're waiting to have the final shot, right? You don't want to give the other team an opportunity on a miss again. But here's my thing. Why are you spending 10 seconds with one guy just sitting there waiting as the clock ticks down with 4 guys standing still? At least set some screens, have some guys move, get guys out of position, because what if something happens where, hey, maybe they run through a screen and it's a foul, right? Next thing you know, you're at the free throw line. Or what happens if maybe one guy's out of position, they forget to switch, someone's left alone wide open in the corner, you have a clear lane to the basket. I hate with like 15 seconds left and the team's like, all right, we're just going to hold the ball till 5 seconds and then panic and try to find an open look. Don't do that. Move around a little bit. Get guys out of position. Don't let the Sixers sit there comfortably and be like, all right, we just got to cover these 2 guys at the end of the game. That's what drives me nuts. And it's not just the Celtics that do it, Donnie. It's a ton of NBA teams that do it from the regular season into the postseason. It just happens all the time. And it's maddening to me because maybe I'm the idiot, but I look and I go, just move around a little bit, maybe pass the ball, try to get the defense in an uncomfortable position, then have them just ready to guard. I don't know. There was so much time. It's like, try to get an offense, right? Because if you have a wide open shot too, you're not passing it up, even if it's maybe 3 seconds to go and you have a wide open layup. You think they're not taking that? Come on, stop.
Yeah, it's you're right that every team does it. It does seem like the Celtics are guilty of that a lot in their end game situations. And maybe it is a thing of, they don't know which J to give it to. I mean, it sounds silly, but it literally could be that. But yeah, disappointed. Like I said, I don't think they deserve to win. In the way the game was going, I thought they were going to lose. I'm always confident that, the Celtics have home court in this series. You win tomorrow, you got to feel real good about it. So I think they get it done tomorrow for sure. And then, I think they can win one of the next 2 after that. So we'll see. But definitely, I'm sure a lot of NBA fans have been a little bit surprised by this series, myself included.
And you know what? It's crazy, too, because obviously you're surprised by the 2-2 series. But if we just took this series away and you watched the teams how they played, I don't think you would feel that concerned as a Celtics fan.
No, especially because the margin of victory has been crazy. The combined score or the combined total that the Sixers have won by and their 2 wins is 5 points.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Celtics have won both games by double digits, one of them by 34.
And that could have been 40 plus the way that game was going. Exactly. And that's why I feel like, they've been the more dominant team in the series. And I think you're right. Sixers fans have to feel at least a little good in their head where they're like, it feels like the Celtics are dominating the series, but it's 2-2. And a 3-game series is a lot easier to win than a 7-game series if you're the underdog. But like I said, Donnie, it feels like the Hawks series to me. Kind of maybe different circumstances, but it feels like the Hawks where you had an outwardly performance from Trae Young that stole a game. You had a game where the Celtics just kind of gave it away at the end of the game. And then you have the Celtics just, we'll clean up business at home and then we'll go on a business trip game 6. That's how it feels to me.
Let's go. I'm all in on that.
I'd hope so.
Last thing, you just made me think of it when you brought up the Atlanta Hawks. My buddy Brett actually said this to me the other day, yesterday after the game, that game 4 from Philly seems awfully similar to the game 5 that Atlanta had, where it was like almost their last breath. It was their last breath. They exhausted everything to get that dub in Philadelphia yesterday. And that,
a couple big shots. It took a couple big shots by a big time player, and it just feels so similar to me because I'm telling you what, if you watched anyone besides James Harden in that fourth quarter, the rest of the Sixers team looked exhausted.
Yeah,
they looked like, where's the inhaler? That's what the rest of the 76ers looked like.
And I can't believe we didn't talk about this either. Like the game could have been over and Joel Embiid throws up an air ball, and PJ Tucker finds this offensive rebound in his lap, and then gets an and one. It was almost just like they
knocked her off. Yeah. I know, because I'm like, you know what? A two's okay. Yeah. Of course, PJ Tucker gets the and one of all players. Dude didn't take a shot in game 2 in 37 minutes or whatever it was. Game 1, game 2, who knows? Of course, it's PJ Tucker. You're right. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I just saw a quote too as we were recording here. Mm-hmm. PJ Tucker said that's actually why he's underpaid in the NBA, because he's a role player and a social worker at the same time.
Oh, jeez.
He hypes up the teammates. He talks to his guys. I'm going to leave that one alone. I think
I'm not going to speak on my thoughts on PJ Tucker.
Yeah, all that being said, we can move to the last series, which I said we talked about at the top. It's sneaky been the most entertaining because I thought it was over. Another one that's 2-2. It's awesome, we don't have any really blowouts in these series.
The only one, like I said, that might be a blowout is if the Heat win again tonight. I think they could just kind of run the Knicks out of the gym tonight, and then they're not losing 3 straight. But this is the one that looked like a blowout after the first 2 games. And I think you weren't on last week because it was me, Jake, and Amari, and we were talking about it, and we were like, without Chris Paul, it feels like back against the wall for the Suns. I talked to them how impressive the Nuggets' second half defense has been, and that's really been, I guess, my opinion changing on, can the Nuggets really make a deep playoff run to, the Nuggets are actually a legit threat. We knew Jokic was going to play like an MVP. There was no doubt in my mind how Jokic and Jamal Murray are going to play offensively. It was the defense where I watched them in the Minnesota series and on the first 2 games against Phoenix. So I was like, wow, this is a different looking Nuggets team. But I said the only way the Suns get back in this series is they have the best chance to get back in this series of any team that's down 0-2 because they have 2 superstars that are 2 superstar pure scorers that can take over any game if they really want to when they're on. And I'll tell you what, Dunny, right now, the Denver Nuggets are in a 2-2 series. They're going back home, best home court advantage in the NBA right now. They're going back home, and they're facing an A+ Booker and a Kevin Durant that in game 1 and 2 was probably a C+ Kevin Durant. And in Phoenix, he's looking like an A+ KD again. Yeah. And I'll tell you right now, the Nuggets are a better team. They're a more balanced team. They look like the better defensive team. They may have the most dominant player in the world right now, Nikola Jokic. But you're going up against an A+ Devin Booker and an A+ KD. The Suns could have got swept very easily. And these 2 guys have just willed them. I think it was 80-something combined points in game 3. They each scored 36 in game 4. You have back-to-back games where both your superstars are over 35-plus points. You can't scheme against that. You can't defend against that. You just, what do you do in that situation? So now we're in a weird spot where I still think the Nuggets are the favorites in the series. They're going back home. They've been dominant at home. But if there's any 2 guys when they're hot to just ride the wave, it's Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. And this would be impressive because they're not getting much help from anyone else. And they have evened up the series against the 1 seed in the West, against the team that has the best player in the world right now, Nikola Jokic, and against a team that really had a chance to just put them away, nail in the coffin. And Devin Booker and KD said, no, not yet. Yeah. This is at least going 6. This is at least coming back to Phoenix.
Yeah.
We got to see
it really has been fun, especially those 2 games in Phoenix, because the games in Denver were entertaining too. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I think obviously KD and Booker and the Phoenix Suns just woke up, so instantly it made it a more competitive, better watch of a series. But Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, man, 86 points combined in game 3, 72 points combined last night. These 2 guys, I mean, we knew it would just be so many buckets when these guys matched up. And then you have Nikola Jokic on the other side dropping the most casual 53-point game you will ever see.
Dude, I mean, that was
in 39 minutes.
Poetic. a poetic 53-point game. And that's what Jokic does. And that's what he's been doing this entire series. And I know Meerkat has been in my ear all week long. Oh, he should have won MVP. He should have won. We knew he wasn't going to win it because they weren't giving him 3 straight. Let's just forget that. Throw that out of the question. He's playing like the MVP. And I'll tell you what, Dunny, we didn't see this type of Jokic in the regular season. We saw the Jokic stat line of 25, 22 points, 15 boards, 12 assists. In this playoff series or in the playoffs overall, Jokic is like, guess what? No one can guard me. And there's no one on this Phoenix Suns team that can be. So I'm just going to get what I can get. And I honestly cannot remember the last time we had a 50-plus point scorer lose in a playoff game. And on the other side, you have 2 35-plus point performances. You look at Devin Booker and KD, 160 points in the 2 games in Phoenix. You split that in half there, 40 points per game average. I mean, Nikola Jokic could do a lot. He's been unbelievable, and he lost both those games because of those performances. This has been first off, a bettor's dream for player props because you just take their points and say thank you later. I'll take the money at the end in a couple hours at the end of the night. But B, this has been a fun series if you like to watch superstars take over, because the Nuggets do have a great supporting cast. I'm not saying they don't at all, but this has been from middle of the third quarter till the end of the game, the Jokic Murray pick and roll versus KD and Devin Booker isolation. And it's beautiful because we're just watching 4 guys that are so dominant just display it in the biggest stage.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to me because we know how good Kevin Durant is. We've seen him in so many playoff series where he's the guy, get him the ball, let him go to work. It's just it's honestly like cool to see how much he defers to Devin Booker and kind of lets him run the offense. And he's just there. You know, if Book gets doubled, then Kevin Durant's just at the top of the key and he can do his thing. It really is. I don't know if we've seen an offense quite like this in the sense that, especially when Chris Paul doesn't play, when it's just them two, instead of trying to play off ball, they're almost both just setting up their own shot until it doesn't work. And I don't want to discredit them for being playmakers because Booker had 12 assists last game. Like, they're getting guys involved when they need to.
Because they draw a double.
Yeah, or a triple.
yeah.
And I don't know. I really haven't seen this type of basketball before. Of course, we've seen stars play together, but they're both just such precise, dominant scorers that they just take the ball, they catch, they're calm. Even when the double comes, KD will shoot over the double sometimes. Booker will rip through and get 2 defenders sometimes. Or like I said, they'll set up their teammates. They also combined for 18 assists last night too.
Which
it's just crazy.
I think you have to give KD a ton of credit for being like, you know what, I will be the 1B to Devin Booker. I joined this team. This is Devin Booker's team that I joined. Devin Booker, when he gets in these spurts, these streaks, and he got hot at the right time, he's one of the best pure scorers in the NBA. And I think Kevin Durant kind of recognized that in the first round series against the Clippers, when, if you remember, KD was drawing a lot of the double teams. KD was drawing a ton of the double teams. He's like, I'm just going to kick it to Devin Booker. And Devin Booker took over that series, and it's carried over into this series against the Nuggets, where KD's like, I'm still going to get mine. I'm still going to get my shots up. But you know what? Like, when Devin Booker's on, let the offense go through him. And I almost think, and I'm not going to say Chris Paul, Chris Paul hurts this team when he's on the court, but I almost like when we've seen when Chris Paul has been injured before, and Devin Booker has to play that kind of hybrid point guard, shooting guard role, where Devin Booker is trying to draw defenders in to set up his teammates. And if they don't bring the double, he's just shoot. And Devin Booker is one of those guys where end of game, he's one of those players. He's like, you know what? If we're going to lose because of me. We're going to lose because I take that. There's no, it's a close game, late game. I'm waiting till about, 10 to 5 seconds on the shot clock, get up a shot. Devin Booker, if you saw in the game the other night where he would just be like, I'm open, I'm taking this 3. I'm driving to the lane. It did not matter. And I really like that because it keeps the defense off balance. It keeps them off guard. And it makes the Nuggets be like, what do we do? Who do we double? Like, what do you do in that situation? Because if you start doubling, like when we watched the clip, they were like, we're just not going to let KD beat us. We're going to double him the whole game. The Suns are like, okay, Devin Booker's why? Yeah. You're leaving Devin Booker alone in the corner for a three. You're letting Devin Booker run to the hoop. So now if you're the Nuggets, and this has been pretty impressive because their defense has been the reason I've been like, for real. They held the Phoenix Suns to 87 points in game 2, and I said that Phoenix Suns have to retaliate, and they will with their two best players. Since that 87-point game in game 2, Dunny, the Suns have scored 121 and 129. That's about a 40-point difference right there.
Yeah.
And I know they go as far as Booker and KD take them, but if there's any duo that can carry a team against a team like the Nuggets to win maybe on the road or steal this series, it's Devin Booker and KD, man. And it's been a joy to watch because it feels like we're watching these teams square up on the playground. And it's like, you know who the best player is, but you have no answer, right? You're playing some pickup basketball with your buddies and you look on the other team and you're like, we know this guy's scoring 30 on us and there's nothing we can do. That's how I feel this is in an NBA playoff setting.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on it. You were like, pick who you want to double, and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker might be the most perfect example for pick your poison.
Yeah.
Because that is what it is. You're picking whoever you decide to double, the other one's just going to break down your defense completely. But the last thing here, Devin Booker, I mean, if they make it past this round and then, ultimately get to the finals, Devin Booker may have one of the best playoff runs we've ever seen. 36.8 points per game, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and then he's shooting 62% from the field and 51% from 3.
I mean, it's unreal. And it's crazy, too, because there's been so many individuals this postseason have been unbelievable. Yeah. It's like, who's been the best player in the playoffs? I'd have to really think about that. But it's hard not to say Devin Booker, which is crazy because Jimmy Butler's had an unbelievable postseason so far. Nikola Jokic, like we said, the quietest 53-point game I think we've ever seen. Maybe because it wasn't even a late night game. No, I'm not even going to give the East Coast going to bed early an excuse. That was on 8 p.m. And it was just like, oh, he scored 53 in a loss. Huh?
Yeah.
But you're right. Devin Booker is putting up a stat line that not only did we think we'd ever see, but he's doing it with tight defense on him. This is not like, oh, he's just wide open. He's just saying nobody can guard me right now. And that's terrifying when you go up against a player like that, who Devin Booker especially has that type of mindset when he knows he's locked in. He knows there's nothing that can stop him. Scary sight. Scary, scary sight. I don't know, dude. I think this goes 7. I think we got another 7-game
series.
I was
say the same thing because both teams look so good on their home court. Mm-hmm. And then, as we know, anything could happen in a game 7. Obviously, Denver will have that edge if it does go 7. But I think what we can say about the Phoenix Suns is they've game planned better as this series has gone on. Players have stepped up as this series has gone on. And it just, I mean, I don't know how many times we can say it. It's a brand new series. Everyone thought that the Phoenix Suns were dead. And now here they are, 2-2. I'm with you, man. I think it's going 7. I'm super excited for all of these series. But, after the Celtics Sixers, got to be the Suns Nuggets for me.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, it's tough because then you got Lakers Warriors.
It's all good. It's NBA playoffs.
We've gotten 4 incredible series. And what I will say with the Suns, I know we've talked about KD and Booker the whole time, and it has really been a 2-man show. But I want to give the Suns a little bit of credit. Shamet played great. Landry Shamet played great last game. He was cold-blooded making the open threes. Terrence Ross played some minutes and actually made some shots. Fan favorite Terrence Ross. As well. Landell and Warren are playing a little bit. We talked about the biggest, negative for the Suns, or the biggest reason we don't think they're going to make a big run is because they don't have depth. They're starting to play their guys. They're starting to step up. And, hey, you never know what'll happen. I'll tell you what, I don't know if Landry Shamet's hitting 5 threes again, but that was a nice welcoming for Suns fans and the Suns to have a guy wide open that thought, like, we're not going to cover him. And he just made every 3 in the fourth quarter, it felt like.
I mean, he did. Yeah, I saw. I got to pull it up again now because it's too funny. We'll end with this. But his stat line yesterday, I think it was just all points. I think he was just literally out there to score.
Just standing in the corner, made open shots. I think he had 5 threes, right? 5 of 8 from 3.
It's just absolutely insane, man. I think he had I don't know why I can't find. Oh yeah, here it is. 19 points in 30 minutes. 0 turnovers, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 assists, 0 rebounds. And he shot 62% from 3.
Just shoot, baby. That's all he needs to do. No one's gonna guard him. What? I'd be like, go switch on Landry Shamet and let KD walk into the paint. No.
Yeah.
They're like, if he's gonna beat us, he's gonna beat us, and he beat him.
Right. Yep. This playoffs have been amazing. We got more games tonight. Heat Knicks have already started. If you're listening live, Lakers Warriors later, and then the other 2 games tomorrow night. For Steve, myself. One more thing. Before we go, hit us with it.
Give me your 4 winners of the series right now. I want to come back to this. Give me your 4 winners of the series.
Okay, I got Heat.
Yep, I got Heat.
Warriors.
I'm going Dubs as well. I hate it, but I'm going. We're gonna have the same 4, aren't
we? Heat, Warriors, Celtics.
Of course.
Duh. I'm sticking Nuggets. I got Nuggets.
I'm gonna go Suns.
Okay, I'm honestly glad.
I'm gonna go Suns. I watched the way I watched Devin Booker. I'm like, I feel like he could steal a game in Denver. I think it goes 7 either way. If the Suns win Game 5, I think Jokic wins Game 6 in Phoenix.
Yeah,
I think it goes 7 regardless. But I just feel like Devin Booker. Been watching him. He's due for like a 50-point go home
explosion.
Type game.
Yeah.
But I think we're the same. I still the Lakers might. It's tough to not pick the Lakers.
That was the toughest one for me, I think. I could easily eat my words.
Heat Celtics for sure, and then the West is more of a toss up for me. Where now I'm Warriors Suns, but I could be talked into either team. I could be talked to any 4 of those teams to come out of the West right now and be like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Nuggets Suns is it's the most relaxed for me. I don't know why, but I just watch and enjoy, and I don't really care who wins for some reason. I'm a huge KD guy, always have been, but I like Jokic as well. I like a lot of players on the Nuggets. I don't have ill will towards either of those franchises, where obviously I'm rooting for the Celtics and the Sixers one. Knicks, Heat, I think the Celtics will probably be fine with either of those if we make it to the next round. I kind of want the Knicks to win, but I'm being realistic here. And then Lakers Warriors, I weirdly don't want the Dubs to advance because my Celtics lost them in the finals last year. But at the same time, it's like you kind of love watching the Warriors play and play winning basketball. So it's really hard. That's why Nuggets Suns has just been like, all right, let's throw this on and watch some points be scored.
And that I feel like that's the exact reason why I love that series, because I'm just watching the superstars take over. On one side of the court, it's Jokic, occasionally Jamal Murray, and on the other side of the court, it's KD or Booker. It's just so much fun. But I mean, really, these playoff series have been A+ so far. They really have. It's been the most competitive, I feel like, in a long time in the second round. Where I know I am Stevie Boston. I'm all in on Celtics to win it. I still think they will. But if you asked me, like, okay, take the Celtics away, who do you think's going to win? I have no idea. Even if you put the Celtics in there right now, I mean, any of these teams, maybe not the Knicks. Maybe that's the only one right now where I'm like, all right, I don't really believe in this team. Any of them else, dude, I could see all of them.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So if you guys take anything from this episode, take that any team could win the NBA championship right now, and that Happy Hour Hoops gives these playoffs an A+ so far, halfway through the second round.
They've been great.
And that'll do it for us tonight, folks. Go enjoy your basketball. For Steve, myself, follow Trainwreck Sports on all socials. Follow at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all socials. And stay locked in with us. Follow us on Twitter. We're always tweeting about the games. We'll be here weekly, sometimes twice a week during these playoffs. Enjoy, folks. Later.
See you guys.